It was 2:14 a.m. when the call came in. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher said, already logging her sixth call that hour. Routine stuff, domestic disputes, a drunk driver spotted near Route 9. But this one would haunt her long after her shift ended. A woman's voice, shaky, whispering, cut through the static. I think someone's in my house. Please, you have to hurry. The dispatcher straightened in her chair. Can you tell me your address? A pause. Breathing. Then, 137 Willow Creek Drive. Please, he's inside. I can hear. A sudden clatter. Something fell. Then a muffled scream. Then silence.
Huh?
Are you still there? Static. Oh. The call ended. In less than 4 minutes, Officer Daniel Rhodes was speeding toward the quiet suburb of Larchwood, sirens off. Dispatch hadn't been able to reconnect the call, and something about the tone, the terror, lodged in his gut like a warning. When he pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. No broken windows, no doors ajar. He knocked. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. By the time backup arrived, they had already forced the door. The house was still. Too still. The kind of stillness that doesn't just feel empty, it feels abandoned. Inside, the living room light was on, casting a flickering yellow hue over a half-spilled glass of wine and a purse lying on the floor. But no one was there. No signs of forced entry. No blood. No struggle. Just absence. Jessica Monroe, age 29, social worker, never seen again after that night. The only clue? The audio file of her final call. A case file marked open, but growing colder by the day. 3 weeks after Jessica Monroe vanished, the story had already begun to fade, like chalk on a rainy sidewalk. At first, the headlines were loud. Local woman missing after 911 call, splashed across evening news and social feeds. Reporters camped outside her small, 2-story house on Willow Creek Drive. Neighbors gave interviews, some sincere, others chasing attention. But as days passed and no body was found, no suspect named, and no breakthrough announced, attention drifted elsewhere. The town of Larchwood had seen disappearances before, runaways, domestic incidents, even a teacher who left without warning in '09. They were always swept aside with the same tired conclusion: some people don't want to be found. But Officer Daniel Rhodes didn't believe that. Not for a second. He remembered Jessica's voice, barely a whisper, but heavy with dread. That wasn't someone running away. That was someone running out of time. Rhodes had seen his fair share of dark corners in the town's 15-year history as a cop. But this case scratched at something deeper. Something wrong. When he revisited the Monroe house on day 22, everything was still as he left it, untouched. No crime scene tape anymore, no more CSI vans. Just silence. He stepped over the threshold again, retracing his steps. The wine glass. The purse. Her phone, never recovered. She must have used a landline, he realized. He moved into the kitchen. No signs of a struggle. The fridge still hummed, untouched groceries inside. A vase of dead flowers drooped on the counter. The normalcy was haunting. Then, he noticed something new. A small photo on the fridge, Jessica smiling, arms around a young girl with braided hair and a dimpled smile. Rhodes hadn't seen the child in any of the reports. He snapped a picture with his phone. Later, back at the station, Rhodes dug deeper into Jessica's background. Born and raised in Larchwood. A social worker specializing in family abuse cases. No criminal record. Lived alone. But there was something buried in the old case files. 3 months before her disappearance, Jessica had filed a report with the department. Anonymous threats. Harassing voicemails. She believed it was tied to one of her cases involving a powerful local contractor and a domestic abuse claim. The case had been closed without action. The officer assigned to it, Sergeant Clay Denton, now conveniently retired and living 2 towns over. Rhodes clenched his jaw. The town hadn't just forgotten Jessica Monroe. It had refused to remember her. Detective Harper Vance wasn't supposed to take on new cases. After 14 years in homicide and 3 in cold cases, She traded trauma for teaching, now lecturing on criminal justice at a state college. She told herself she was done with small-town screw-ups, cover-ups, and corpses. But when Daniel Rhodes showed up at her office with a folder labeled Jessica Monroe and a voice like gravel soaked in frustration, she knew she was about to break that promise. She called 911, he said, pushing the audio recorder across her desk. And then she was just gone. No follow-up. No suspects. Case went nowhere. Harper raised an eyebrow. And I think it was buried. She listened to the call. The panic in Jessica's voice. The eerie silence. The final click. When it ended, Harper sat still for a long moment. Who was the investigating officer? Sergeant Clay Denton. Closed the harassment complaint a few months before she disappeared. Retired right after. Harper leaned back. Her gut had a way of knowing when something was off, and this was more than off. It stank of power, secrets, and negligence. You know, reopening this means ticking off half your department, right? She asked. I'm not here to make friends, Rhodes replied. I'm here to find out what happened to Jessica Monroe. Harper opened the folder. Timeline, interview transcripts, a blurry screenshot of a child's face. Jessica's file was lean, too lean for someone who'd vanished after a 911 call. She picked up the photo from Rhodes' phone. Who's the girl? Still trying to figure that out. No mention of a child in any report. Not hers, not a relative. But that photo was on her fridge. Harper narrowed her eyes. A social worker with a secret connection to a child. Harassment reports ignored. And the last person to investigate it vanished into retirement. She stood. Let's rattle some skeletons. They started with Jessica's last active case file. A 10-year-old girl named Mariah Benson, removed from her home due to repeated signs of abuse. The accused? Her father, Travis Benson. Owner of Benson Construction, one of Larchwood's biggest employers. The case had gone quiet just before Jessica disappeared. The file noted insufficient evidence to proceed. But Harper knew the signs of intimidation when she saw them. And she'd seen Travis Benson's type before, charmers in public, monsters in private. Want to hear something wild? Rhodes said as he slid a folder across the table the next day. 2 other women connected to Travis filed reports over the years. Both recanted. One moved out of state. The other? Died in what they called a freak accident on a hiking trail. Harper exhaled slowly. And no one thought to dig deeper. They all said the same thing: he had friends in high places. She tapped her pen against the desk. Then let's go somewhere low. That night, Rhodes drove Harper out to Larchwood's old storage facility, the off-site evidence locker. If Denton had buried something, it wouldn't be in the official database. Inside, Harper sifted through boxes labeled with peeling ink and dust older than her teaching career. Finally, tucked behind an unmarked cardboard crate, she found it. A cassette tape labeled Monroe, Intake Interview, Case 312B. They rushed it back to Harper's office and played it. Jessica's voice was low, shaking, but determined. He threatened me. Said I didn't know who I was messing with. That if I tried to take that little girl out of his house, he'd make sure I disappeared before the court date. Pause. If anything happens to me, check Travis Benson. Please. Harper paused the tape. Rhodes looked like he'd been holding his breath. She knew, Harper said quietly. She knew exactly what was coming. And nobody listened, Rhodes muttered. Harper's eyes turned cold. They will now. The next morning, Harper Vance walked into the Larchwood Police Department like she owned the place, chin up, blazer sharp, and fury neatly tucked beneath her calm exterior. She handed the cassette to Officer Rhodes. Digitize this, and make sure it's backed up 6 different ways. If anyone tries to bury it again, we burn the whole damn department down. He didn't argue. Meanwhile, Harper turned her attention to a name that had slipped quietly into the margins: Mariah Benson, the young girl from Jessica's photo. If she was still alive, she might be the key to everything. Rhodes had managed to track down a court-ordered relocation notice for Mariah. She'd been moved into foster care under a sealed identity order. But with Harper's old connections in family court, she pulled a few strings. By 3 p.m., they had a name, Mariah Lattimore, age 13, currently in a group home just outside Ashbury, 30 miles west. The home was modest. Faded blue siding, overgrown hedges, and the smell of reheated soup floating through the hall. The supervisor, Mrs. Green, met them at the door. She doesn't talk much, she warned them. Hasn't, really, since she came here. But she likes drawing. Lives in her sketchbook. Mariah sat on the back porch, legs crossed, hoodie up. Her eyes flicked up when they approached, cautious, calculating. The kind of look Harper had seen before on children forced to grow up too fast. Rhodes knelt beside her. "Hi, Mariah. My name's Daniel, and this is Harper. We're trying to find out what happened to someone you might remember. Her name was Jessica." Mariah's fingers tightened around the pencil in her hand. She helped me." Her voice was barely audible. Harper sat beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "Did something happen?" Mariah nodded slowly, eyes never leaving her sketchpad. "He was mad. Really mad. He said Miss Jessica was going to steal me. That I wasn't allowed to talk to her anymore." She turned the page. And there it was, a drawing that stole Harper's breath. A man, towering and angry, stood in a kitchen doorway. A woman with curly hair stood on the phone, fear on her face. A shadow loomed behind her. Mariah pointed to the figure behind Jessica. "That's the man who took her. Do you know who he is?" Rhodes asked gently. Mariah hesitated. Then whispered. "He's not her client. He's her boss's friend." Harper and Rhodes exchanged a glance. That was new. Back in the car, Harper began connecting dots. If Travis Benson was her last active case, and the threats were escalating, and now there's a friend involved. Rhodes finished her thought. Then someone close to the system helped make her disappear. Back in Larchwood, they reviewed employment records. Jessica's supervisor at the social services office? Calvin Rourke. A clean public record, but a private life full of whispers, rumors of backroom deals, favors for city contractors, and a close friendship with Travis Benson. Harper dug deeper. Emails. Phone records. Archived voicemails. And that's when she found it. One voicemail from Jessica to Calvin, dated 2 days before she vanished. "I'm filing an official complaint, Cal. I know you tried to shut this down, but I'm not staying quiet anymore. That girl needs protection, and I won't be threatened into silence." That voicemail never made it into any report. The walls were closing in. They had motive. They had a warning. They had a child witness. All they needed now was proof. And Harper knew exactly where to get it. Travis Benson's private cabin. Off the grid. No cameras. No cell signal. And according to a quiet tip from an old court clerk, Jessica Monroe's name was listed in a ledger Benson kept for visitors. Unofficial. Off the books. She turned to Rhodes. "Ready to break a few rules?" He smiled grimly. "I've been waiting for a reason." It was nearly midnight when Harper and Rhodes pulled off the rural back road that led to Travis Benson's cabin, a sprawling, 2-story structure tucked deep into the Larchwood pines. The place looked more like a hunting lodge than a weekend getaway. It sat quietly under a pale, watchful moon, surrounded by silence that felt too perfect. They parked a quarter-mile down, walking the rest of the way in darkness with flashlights low. No cell signal. No neighbors for 5 miles. "If he did anything to Jessica, this is where it happened," Harper whispered. Rhodes checked his sidearm. "Let's not come out of here with only suspicions." They circled the perimeter first. A back shed. A stack of firewood. A surveillance camera over the front porch light, but it was angled downward, and old, with a red blinking light that meant one thing to Harper: offline. They slipped inside through a side door Rhodes jimmied open with a credit card. Inside, the cabin was pristine. Clean countertops. Polished wood floors. But Harper's eyes caught the cold details: the antlers above the fireplace, the bolted metal trunk near the stairs, the industrial-grade lock on the basement door. Rhodes flicked on his flashlight. "We split up. Always a bad idea in horror movies," Harper muttered, but yeah. I'll take the basement. Rhodes nodded and headed upstairs. In the basement, Harper descended slowly. The air shifted, cooler, mustier. The space was wide, mostly unfinished, filled with storage bins and an old recliner. She scanned shelves, opened drawers, camping gear, hunting tools, files. Then she saw it. A small, locked drawer under a workbench. She yanked it hard. Nothing. Then she noticed a rusted hammer nearby. A single, well-placed hit split the lock. Inside, a leather-bound notebook, and an old flip phone, held together with rubber bands. Harper's stomach dropped. She opened the notebook first. Names. Dates. Visitors. Payments. Threats. Some crossed out. Some underlined. One entry stopped her cold. JM, 9/14. Handled. Jessica Monroe. And below that. CR verified cleanup. File destroyed. No cops. Harper's mouth went dry. CR equals Calvin Rourke. She flipped to the phone. The screen flickered to life. Inside, one saved voicemail. She hit play. You said this would be clean, Travis. That no one would find her. If this comes back on me, it's on you. She was asking questions, too many. You said you'd handle it. It was Calvin's voice. Suddenly, footsteps thudded above. Harper froze. Upstairs, Rhodes had found something of his own, a locked closet behind a false panel. Inside, duct tape. Gloves. A stained tarp rolled up and stuffed behind bags of lime. But before he could take a photo, he heard it. The front door opened. Heavy boots. Two voices. Male. Rhodes pressed himself into the hallway shadows as two men walked into the living room. One was Travis Benson. The other, he couldn't see clearly, but the voice was unmistakable. Calvin Rourke. Why are we here this late? Rourke asked, annoyed. We've got a problem, Benson growled. That nosy cop, the young one, has been poking around. And I heard the Monroe file got reopened. You said you burned it. I did. But if the girl talked. The sound of ice clinking into a glass. Relax, Rourke said. Nobody's going to believe a traumatized kid over two respected professionals. Downstairs, Harper's pulse thundered. She grabbed the phone, the notebook, and slipped toward the stairs. But the old wood creaked. Wait, Benson said upstairs. Did you hear that? Harper didn't wait. She darted up, signaling to Rhodes across the hall with two fingers. Time to go, she mouthed. Rhodes nodded and launched a distraction, kicking over a lamp down the hallway. As Benson and Rourke rushed toward the noise, Harper bolted for the back door. They were nearly out when Benson shouted, Hey! Gun drawn, he fired once. Rhodes tackled Harper behind the shed. The bullet missed by inches. They didn't wait to return fire. They sprinted through the pines until they reached the car, jumped in, and peeled off into the darkness. Back at the station, breathless and shaken, Harper slapped the phone and notebook onto the chief's desk. You wanted proof, she said. There's your proof. Within 24 hours, Travis Benson and Calvin Rourke were arrested. The charges, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and the murder of Jessica Monroe. For the first time in nearly a month, the town of Larchwood couldn't look away anymore. Jessica Monroe's name was back in the headlines. This time, not as a footnote, but as a hero. Her name was Jessica Monroe. The courtroom was packed. Not with reporters, not with politicians, but with ordinary people, teachers, nurses, janitors, social workers, many of whom had once known Jessica Monroe, if only in passing. A kind smile in a tense home. A clipboard clutched to her chest. A quiet promise to a frightened child. Now, she wasn't there to testify. But her voice echoed in every corner of the courthouse. From the 911 recording. From the cassette tape she'd hidden. From the notebook detailing her final investigation. Jessica had left behind a trail, a breadcrumb path through darkness, refusing to be silenced, even in death. Harper Vance sat in the gallery, arms folded, watching as the defense team twisted and strained. They tried to paint Travis Benson as misunderstood, Rourke as misinformed, Jessica as unstable, emotional, possibly overstepping. But then Mariah took the stand. 13 years old. Small for her age. But when she sat down, she didn't shrink. She opened her sketchbook. "This is the day she came to my house," Mariah said. "She told me I mattered. That someone cared." She flipped the page. "This is the last time I saw her. She looked scared. She told me to go to my room." Another page. "And this is the man who came in after." Her voice wavered, but she kept going. "I saw him push her. I saw her fall. And then I heard nothing." The courtroom was frozen. No scribbles. No coughs. Just the scratch of a pencil as Mariah drew on the witness stand, hand trembling. When she finished, she whispered, "Her name was Jessica Monroe. She was my friend." The jury didn't take long. Guilty. On all counts. The sentence, life without parole. Rourke, too, was convicted, conspiracy and obstruction, with a 35-year sentence. Justice didn't bring Jessica back, but it cracked open the system that tried to erase her. After the trial, Harper visited Jessica's grave. It was small. Simple. Too quiet. But someone had left a crayon drawing tucked into the headstone. Mariah's name was on the corner. It showed Jessica, smiling, standing between Mariah and a house. The sun beamed in the corner. Flowers grew beneath their feet. For the first time in years, Harper felt something like peace. She spoke softly. "They tried to shut you up. Tried to make you just another file in a drawer. But you were louder than all of them, Jessica." She brushed a fallen leaf from the stone. "You were the voice that wouldn't quit." Epilogue, the legacy. 6 months later, the state of Oregon passed Jessica's Law, a reform package mandating third-party oversight in child welfare cases, especially those involving powerful families. It also created a whistleblower protection fund for social workers. Mariah was adopted by a couple who had followed her story in the news. She got therapy, a dog, a new school where she studied art and forensic illustration. And Detective Harper Vance? She returned to teaching, but also founded a cold case unit made up of retired officers and young recruits. Their motto was etched in bronze on the wall. "We speak for the silenced." The last call she ever made wasn't the end of Jessica Monroe's story. It was just the beginning of the justice she died trying to bring. If you enjoyed this episode of Chase Studio Stories, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue to share impactful and meaningful content.